2020 Florida Prize in Contemporary Art has been postponed 1 year due to the coronavirus pandemic. In anticipation of the upcoming exhibition, we're conducting studio visits with each of the artists. My name's Hansen Mulford. I'm the curator at the Orlando Museum of Art.
And I'm Coralie Claeysen-Gleyzon, Associate Curator at the Orlando Museum of Art. And today we're meeting with Sean Miller. Hi, Sean.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Considering. Yeah. So, Sean, would you tell us a little bit about your practice?
My practice is often framed in terms of some type of network or collaborative action, working with other people, and it merges the way that a curator works with the way that an artist works. And that comes naturally, I think, out of the way that I started making work once I got out of college. I got interested in alternative spaces right when I got out of school, and I happened to move to Seattle and started a collective there called Soil. Simultaneously, I was working at the Seattle Art Museum, and because of that, and because Seattle's a big but also a small town simultaneously, I was able to do work in a lot of different ways, like going back and forth between curating and running this alternative space, Soil, and working with a bunch of different artists collaboratively, but also setting up exhibitions, working at the Seattle Art Museum, helping in the exhibitions department. And it allowed me to maybe look at art from a lot of different ways. I think it was like a really good way to learn about how a show happens from the very moment it's an idea to when the doors open and people start coming in to see an exhibition, and also to play with those boundaries and expectations. And so I think sometimes the way you introduce art to people is as important as the art itself, or it is part of the art itself. So I've done projects like the John Erickson Museum of Art, which is a small, that came after I moved to University of Florida to get a teaching job here. I started a project called the John Erickson Museum of Art, or GEMA, and it's a location variable museum that is basically, it fits into an aluminum carrying case. And I have some images that I can show in a minute, but it's been involved with a lot of different artists. Like I've shown works. The opening is scaled down to the size of the museum gallery space. And so the openings are 2 minutes, and it's based on one of the rooms that I used to work in at the Seattle Art Museum that's a gallery. So it's a scaled down replica of that room. Then after that, I've been involved in other mobile museum projects. The term pop-up is really familiar, I think, in terms of art exhibition techniques. But when I started the GEMA in 2003, it wasn't a really common term. And it was related to things that like Marcel Duchamp and Robert Filou had done in the past. So I'm interested in sharing the idea of not only planning an exhibition with somebody, but then planning on where it could open. If you're not geographically fixed, the idea of different sites being the location where the art happens, or the case opens, or the show opens, kind of fascinated me for many years, and it's led me to all the work that I've been doing and since then, in terms of playing around with the expectations of that, also the way we look at objects and visual culture.
And as I understand it, you invite artists to participate in exhibitions in this miniature gallery.
There's multiple miniature galleries, and the walls are interchangeable. But I've had numerous exhibitions with artists, and there's even a side of it that's two-dimensional, like this rubber stamp that I have has an image of the GEMA gallery on it, and so I can stamp that on a piece of paper, and people can do collages on that, and I've invited people to do things like that as well. So it's a conceptual space. I was talking to Lawrence Weschler about the project, and he brought up the fact that with museums like this, it allows the viewers to kind of finish building the institution with you. and understanding the parameters with you. And I liked that a lot. And a lot of times when I write the artists, I don't mention that it's a scaled down version of the museum. I just contact them as being a curator that's interested in their work and doing an exhibition. And then after we get the dialogue going, I mention that it's, very small little space that they'll be working in. So
what's the reaction?
I've been surprised by the reaction over the years, and I've really enjoyed it because most of the time, if artists respond, they will be interested in the show. And with the GEMA location variable gallery shows, I've never really, it's not something I commission. So it's just kind of like almost like a favor, but then it's also like a collaboration because GEMA is a mechanism that I know how it works and I know how to use it. And so I invite people and we talk together about where the show will open, what location we can use, because it could happen anywhere. And then we talk about like what the appropriate thing for the show would be based on work that they've done or that they've wanted to do. And that's a lot of fun to conspire in that way. And I think the reaction for most people is that it's refreshing to work this way. And it definitely has helped me in understanding art and objects and artists and myself and why we make things and all that. So yeah.
Where are some of the places that the exhibitions have opened?
One of my favorite ones to tell people about is I did a show with Sergio Vega, who also has been part of the Florida Prize, but it was when Art Basel Miami Beach was first starting, and we flew his exhibition High Art over the Art Basel Convention Center in a banner plane that advertised the museum, and it said, "See a little art. High Art Sergio Vega." And so it was the highest art at Art Basel that year because it was up so high in the plane. But then and the banner plane was advertising the website so people could look at the show. And then once the plane landed, we brought it into the convention center and it invited people for the exhibition at the VIP lounge. And they came and met us there. And once again, we didn't talk about the scale at all of the show. We just talked about him doing the exhibition. And then the following year, I did one with Saya Moriyasu that was part of the Aqua exhibition, a different kind of satellite of Art Basel. That one we ended up taking over to the convention center as well. And me and the guard, because there is a John Erickson Museum of Art guard, got asked to leave the premises, and my guard was telling their guard to not get too close to the museum. And there was like a kind of a standoff that was really great that I wish I'd gotten on video. That was fun. But eventually we left. But we all we needed was 2 minutes there, and we got our 2 minutes for Saya's opening, so that was good. And we went out to art positions and the Aqua Art Fair, and so it got seen quite a bit for that exhibition. Yeah, these are the GEMA, the ones that I just mentioned. That was Saya Moriyasu's exhibition, which was Ghost Audience. And this is the Seattle Art Museum, where it actually, I have a blueprint here. The arcade building that is listed here is where my great-grandfather's watchmaking and engraving jewelry shop was on the second floor of the arcade building, and that got torn down to become the Seattle Art Museum. And so when I was working at the Seattle Art Museum, I found out I'd been working in the same space but a different building. And so that idea of objects being not what they seem, or having relationships that don't quite sync up sometimes, or there's a slippage that goes on in your understanding of a space, is a huge part of the project, you know.
Something that I find fascinating is that you literally transform the museum into an object too, right? So it's that collection of objects, but that becomes an object itself. And I find it really interesting in context with another side of your work, which is to do with the Fluxus kits or Fluxus boxes, because those boxes are almost mini museums in themselves as well, with a collection of objects in them. Would you care to talk a little bit about the Flux kits and boxes that you're creating as well?
Some of the Fluxus kits that are part of GEMA, it's like a different incarnation of the museum, is using the kits as a form to introduce different artists' work. But the reason why that started to become more of a fascination is because artists like Ben Patterson, this is his exhibition, Bollywood Love, Object of Desire, which is his appropriation and painting of how to put on a sari, how to wear one, became a series of framed images. And so these are the shots of inside. And then also his iconic work, Paper Piece, is to use paper as an instrument. I also designed another of the Gemma gallery spaces to do one of the Paper Piece concerts. And we did that at a museum in Italy together with a larger show for the John Erickson Museum. And it was the 50th anniversary of his Paper Piece project, which he'd been doing in different incarnations over the years. And so he brought a 50-year anniversary golden shredder to the event. And so we took the pages off, or we took the walls out that were made of paper and shredded them, but also mixed them with different art magazines. And then they filled the gallery space here. And we had assistants working so that the whole space got completely filled and covered. And then it stayed that way for the rest of the exhibition. So just by chance, like when I started the project, I was getting drawn towards Fluxus because the same people that were interested in Fluxus were interested in Gemma. And I wasn't super knowledgeable. I knew I liked Fluxus, but I didn't see necessarily when I started, I didn't see it as a Fluxus strategy. I just saw it as something that I wanted to experiment with and that I felt needed to happen. But then I just kind of got drawn into it. And different people like Gregory Green here in Florida has his own country, and Gemma's been a consulate for that. He was trying to get an island to be part of his nation, the new Free State of Carolina. And we did events in Ireland raising his flag. And these are some of the rubber stamp collage type versions of the gallery spaces. Mm-hmm. And then this is the Fluxus kit that I've been working on. And I'm doing probably 9 of these over a period of years where each one will be different. And I think the last one probably won't resemble the original Fluxus kits very much at all. But the first ones will start off looking like the Fluxus kits did, and including Fluxus artists. One of the people that I've met recently, another Fluxus artist, is Philip Corner, and this is his piano piece sculpture that he had included in the first Fluxus kit. And also there's these, in the thing, there's these fake prison dice that Jack Massing did, who's one of the art guys who I'm working on some other projects with right now, but he made fake prison dice, which I liked including them because of the wordplay. Like prison dice are a thing that people make in prison so that they can gamble, but fake prison dice, it brings up the idea of like, well, what's the real dice? It's fun to think about them as objects, you know. And then Yoko Ono, some of her works are in there. The Imagine Peace stamp is a part of it, and some other projects by her are a part of it. And Bjork has the Utopia bird calls that are a part of it. Woo! I think this is an owl bird call. So there's a lot of different like objects and scores that are involved in it. And to kind of illustrate, and this relates to my work that's more ecological too, but it's a score by George Brecht, one of the Fluxus artists, and it gets to the idea of ontology, or the nature of being of different objects, because it says, consider an object, call what is not an object other, and then the exercises add to the object from the other another object to form a new object and a new other, and repeat until there is no more other. Take a part of the, and then another version of this is take a part of the object and add it to other to form a new object and a new other, repeat until there is no more object. And it's playing with the idea of like, you know, how objects exist through time and how we consider them to exist as certain things. And we have certain expectations of things behaving a certain way and being identified in a certain way. And that to me is why Fluxus has a inherently ecological side to it. This interest in questioning the nature of objects, or setting up kits or spaces where people are allowed to ask those questions, I think is really valuable right now. In Fluxus, you know, it's philosophical, but I think when it gets into things like my other work with drifting cabinets and crude life with Brendan Ballingy, those questions of how materials and objects behave in the natural world, like in oil spills or things like that, thinking about those materials or putting those materials into a state of play in your mind can help you imagine the state of the world right now and how pollution behaves and how we think about even the material possessions that we have and how we dispose of them and how they live on despite us being done with them. You know, they exist in the world. And it feels like different projects when I'm working on them, but I think really the ideas behind them are really similar and just kind of being expressed in different ways.
Your piece, Drifting Cabinets, is one of the works that we would like to show in our Florida Prize exhibition. And it kind of relates a little bit to a revival of your idea of the cabinet of curiosities.
Right. And that also comes out of the ideas that the surrealists had, and the ways that the surrealists collected objects and thought about them, natural objects or ethnographic type objects. And so there's that relationship, and even the Fluxus kits themselves are like cabinets. Across the board, there's a relationship between all those things. So this is an image of drifting cabinets, the fish trunk, which is all creatures that are exist in the Gulf or around Florida, and the inner lid of it is plastic ocean pieces by Bethany Taylor, an artist who does great work, and she did a project called installation called Plastic Ocean. And so I thought it'd be a great kind of interior to the trunk to have the actual fish specimens in the base that are lit from underneath, and then have the plastic itself like as a part of the display as well. And the whole point of the project is to get people talking about like the natural world in the Gulf region, and also thinking about like things, ecological disasters like the Gulf oil spill and other problems that exist in the Gulf. And so it's like, it's looking at biodiversity and pulling in a lot of different artists and scientists and different organizations in the Gulf as collaborators to help kind of stock the trunks and consider the content that we're going to explore. And it's important that it's hands-on. Actually, part of my reason for reviving the Fluxus kits as well is both the Fluxus kits and Crude Life and Drifting Cabinets benefit from having people being able to play with them and touch them and look at the objects and not be hands-off about their experience with the objects. And also that they're not framed necessarily by institution that I consider them museums or collections that travel, but they're not like visiting a museum. They're open, they can open anywhere, like the John Erickson Museum, and it puts the objects in a state of play where people can talk with the scientists and artists that are a part of the exhibiting group. So like these are where they're set up to be mobile and open in any context, like outdoors or at different museums or science centers equally. And it's interesting when you have the opening and the scientists and the artists are all there. This is the Crude Life at the National Academy of Sciences and Engineering in California when we opened it. And the wallpaper is by another artist named Mark Dion, that they left it up afterwards. So that Brandon and I both know as well. But it's been up in that room. It's just a beautiful room that he made. And so we brought the Crude Life trunks there and gave a talk about it. And this is another opening for Crude Life where all the trunks are open. And I can't really point them out, but there's musicians, artists, and scientists that are all associated with the project talking to the public while this is going on informally. And those type of conversations, I think, are really valuable and don't happen all the time. It's fun to be a part of them because there'll be a person that's interested in a specific creature or specimen or something like that, and there's somebody else that's maybe interested in how the project was made, and then there's somebody else that's an artist who just wants to talk about something aesthetic, and there's somebody that has an interest in the environment. At the very top of the image, there's an orange inflatable, and there's a guy singing. That's Kevin Mahoney, who's actually singing songs about the Gulf. And one of the things that we do, in our opinion, in these projects was that there's a biodiversity that exists culturally and in music. And so we have a mixtape that people can fill out and put a song that relates to the Gulf of Mexico or ecology in the Gulf. And so we're constantly creating a song list based on that. And there's a giant tape that is in a kit trunk that is included with the questionnaire. And so people can people can fill out their song list, and we keep compiling that as part of the project too. So it's thinking about cultural biodiversity and the relationship between art and science, while it's also, you know, considering the natural world in the Gulf. And it's just an incredible, rewarding project to do.
Another project we'd like to present is also your Dream Registry.
The Dream Registry is a project that I started with Connie Wong and Jess Larson, working with somebody that was working at Harborview, Peggy Weiss, one of the curators there, which is Harborview Medical Center is in Seattle, and they have a really great art collection. And she had seen one of the press releases or email blasts I sent out for one of the events that was going on for the John Erickson Museum. And so she contacted me and said, you know, if you ever want to do a portable exhibition here, let me know. And so it took a few years, but I eventually, you know, I went out with not knowing kind of what to expect or what to do. But in meeting with her, I really enjoyed seeing the hospital. And by chance, my dog had died just a day or two before I left. And so when I got there, I was kind of still sad from that. And I was walking around, and they were talking about how, you know, when people are hurt or in pain or sick, what emotional state they're in. And then also we were talking about space, and they were talking about how, you know, whatever the public art projects are, it's important that they're safe and out of the way so doctors can do their work. And so I just went home and I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, you know, cards or something that would allow people to record their dreams for some reason stuck out to me, because I was thinking of the importance of rest, you know, like if patients are going to somehow be involved in it, they're going to need to rest and all that. And so I was thinking, well, rest, sleep, and dreams always fascinate me. I collect artist dreams as well. And some people say they're really boring. I was listening to something on NPR, and they said the most boring thing you can do is talk about your dreams. And I just really disagree. Anytime somebody tells me they had a great dream or a weird dream, I'm all ears, you know, for it. And so I thought it would be a way to kind of build community even within the hospitals and among patients and staff. Is you have this goal. If all you have to do is lay around and sleep, you know, and try to heal, the idea of sharing a dream or having a way to save a dream might help. There's an image of Shands or UF Health, and it's on the pillow, and then on the back is a certain small little snippet from one of the dreams that you can read, and the pillows will be suspended in the exhibition. But you can also go to the website right down here, this dreamregistry.net at the bottom of the right card, and you can read the dreams in their entirety as were recorded by people. And Connie and I usually do the drawings, and then Jess Larson is the expert person who does the digital embroidery for it, and she does a great job. And so this is what the website looks like. And this was part of the exhibition when we were getting dreams at Harborview. Like when I was out there to launch it, we put up pillows in the cases, and patients used them, and I was there for a week and trying to get as many dreams as I could for the week that I was there. But it's been on hold because of COVID. When things got busy and shut down, I got the sense that it didn't seem like I wanted to follow up with them, because I felt like they were probably really busy. So it's something I probably will reach out soon, but I wanted to give it space and time.
Right. I actually was thinking about your piece, about this specific piece within the COVID environment, and wondered if, you know, it generated new dreams, or, you know, even more vivid dreams maybe. And because you collect the dreams both from staff, right, as well as patients. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's common for people to have dreams about their work, you know, like their day-to-day work environment becomes a huge part of their dreams. And that was, I got as many dreams from Harborview from staff as I did patients, and they were equally moving to me in both regards, because the staff, they're thinking hard about like how to do their job the best, or what's happened in their job over a course of many years. And it brings up really amazing imagery, and the patients too are working through things, you know. And so And initially that was a concern when I was meeting with doctors about it at Harborview, and I want to do it at more hospitals too. I want to continue, but I brought up the fact that, well, if I'm just talking to people about their dreams, they're kind of unfiltered. And what if it's a disturbing dream or a crazy dream? They share them anonymously, but still. And the doctors, I really liked their response at Harborview. They just said, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that they get to vent or talk about these ideas or experiences. And they said, so we don't care necessarily. There's no problem with you recording what they say. I was really pleased with that.
In virtually everything you do, there's an element of humor and fun. But it's really interesting how you also board these subjects that can be really heavy and sad, such as the environmental crisis, or right now COVID, or even being in a hospital, a hospital stay. So it's done in such a way that is not heavy, and it's still an element of kind of fun or lightness to it.
I hope it functions that way. I think that humor as a way of dealing with a problem is just a natural part of the way I work. And I like that because there's something about playing with objects or ideas and having that sense of lightness that it allows me to see it in a way that makes me open and keeps the situations open.
Thank you for sharing this with us. We're really looking forward to seeing the show when it opens up next summer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.